That's the music we're never going to use. I'm sure everybody appreciates that. Yes, they do.
So Dave, being a rebel, has to have something that just brings in the game and fun in life. Welcome back to another exciting episode with David and I. Today, we're going to catch you up on our current training and really thought about actually now starting to share our Grand Canyon adventure with you. What it took to actually do Grand Canyon rim to rim, all of the prep, all of the training, and we're going to pack this into 3-part episodes. So this is part 1, so we're going to dive into that. But before we do, I wanted to say, Dave, tell us about your training this last week. Oh, and before we even ask David about his training, first of all, welcome you listeners. You know, we are here to help inspire you and be the ember that's rising inside with whatever your dream is that you're shooting for. You know, whether you're, heading out on another adventure yourself, or maybe you are an inspiring artist in some way, shape, or form, or a stay-at-home mom, whatever inspiring you to just be the best you can be. Or maybe you're pushing yourself or want to push yourself into areas that you never thought possible. And that's what Dave and I are really talking about. We want to bring it to the table, bring it raw, bring it real, and share our stories with you about what has helped us kind of move the needle and break through a lot of old stories that we used to live through. And also do stuff that we never thought was possible. So yeah, we're here with you, raising up the embers inside. So yeah, let's dive in, Dave.
So if you're a life changer and you're looking to change your life, then this podcast is probably for you. And today, obviously, we're going to talk about the Grand Canyon. So if you're thinking about doing rim to rim, you're thinking about running the canyon, then this series of small episodes is absolutely for you.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's catch up on what's happening right now. Dave and I are training for our first 50K, a 32-mile foothills run in the valley of Boise, Idaho. We are also going to have a backup because we know that the weather, the certain time of year that they actually hold this race, is very hot, very dry, and the trail is actually very technical. So there's a lot of rock and a lot of single track. So we may have just a backup race that we do that's not here. We may travel to it. So we're kind of looking at some options for backups because anytime that we do something like this, we want to have fun. The whole point of training for something is not only to push ourselves into different areas of life and our bodies and our mental space, but also be out there to enjoy it and not just tear ourselves up. So we know this trail very well because this trail is a trail that we've spent many hours biking on. We have mountain biked this trail year after year after year. And this was a race that came up and it was called the Bogus 50-50. And we said, so, hey, let's sign up for it. Let's do it. And let's train on it. So we've been toggling our training on the race course and then off the race course, kind of like every other week. So that being said, this last week was a little bit of a surprise because we went out on a training run. What was it, David? Like Tuesday morning, we went to go do a 2-hour run?
Yeah, I think we've decided we're going to do one long run every week. And we're going to do one medium-size run. And
yes.
Then a couple of sort of just maintenance and maybe do some sprints. But we were doing the trails, part of the trails that not going to be in this ultra, but very close, very similar in terrain.
Yeah.
And what's nice is we can actually run it right outside our back door. And so for me, going into the Grand Canyon and going into this next race, I'm really just focusing on the fundamentals and putting time on feet. And one of the key fundamental pieces that I didn't really count on is, like Doozer says, no whammies, right? And so there I am coming down a pretty steep, rocky downhill.
Okay, wait. I just want to back this up before you share this because this was a very early morning run. We were out at 5:30. And we said, hey, let's get in a 2-hour run. And so just so you know, where the trail starts from our house, we have to run down a couple of streets to get to it. So just to get to the trailhead of the actual dirt. We're talking a good 12 to 15 minute run through a neighborhood.
It's a warm up.
It's a warm up. Okay. So then we get there and the trail literally goes straight up. That's like the warm up. And then it just goes straight up and it starts switch back into a saddle. From the saddle, you start crossing over what we call the flow trail because it's just super flowy. There's a little bit more uphill inclines, and then it kind of ends on one of the uphill inclines too.
You get a good balance of uphill and downhill.
Yeah, so
and
it's
that
great.
first part, though, when you first get on, I think I measured it over the weekend, and it's 1,700 feet of vertical, just pretty much
In like
up
half
and
an
up,
hour, 30 minutes.
Up and up and up.
So then we get to this next section, which is the downhill. It's called Cobb Trail. It goes down, and there's a lot of footwork. There's a lot of rock at the very beginning. It's very single tracky, and right now, because it's moving into that summer space, we're still having spring hangover from all the grasses being overgrown. The grass is like hanging over the side of the trail. It's really hard to see all of the rock on the edge or inside where your footwork is. So, we're just trying to pay a lot of attention to where we're at, trying to be present while we run. So I just had to say that before you actually told your story, just to set our listeners up for the vibe. It's actually very beautiful. There's like meadows around us while we're running, but the trail itself is very single track, and it just goes down and down and down once we get to that downhill section.
So, as I was saying, focusing on the fundamentals, and what Ryan Doozer says is no whammies, and I managed in that tall grass in that downhill with my music on to not be paying as much attention to my feet as I should be, because I'm just flowing and moving along, and I think I just caught a toe. And it's one of those things where you feel like you're Superman for a minute because you're flying face forward with an arm out, and it happens in slow motion, and then things speed up very quickly. And yeah, boy meets ground is the story. And you pop your head up, and I'm sitting in like 4-foot tall grass in the mountains, just barely peeking down the trail, seeing if Wendy had seen the whole thing. Of course not. She's moving very quickly in front of me. And you just take that second of, where do I go now? And I think we all have those experiences in life, right? Like where you have a setback, where you have a hit, where you have something, and you're trying to decide, how bad is it?
This was your first fall, actually, on a trail run.
This was my, I mean, I've had a lot of falls in life, but this was my first fall on a trail run.
On a trail run,
Absolutely.
Yeah, pretty hardcore. And I was already down, I had already gone down another downhill and up the next uphill on a switchback. So I was waiting at the top to make sure that you had made it down and around before we continued on. And I didn't see you for a minute. I was just like, and that was the day I woke up feeling like one of us was about to go down in the next 48 hours. And particularly that day, I was just noticing the rock, it was on my mind, and I noticed the rock on the trail was really like, do you see those big like chunks of rock right in the middle of the trail? It was just easy to roll your foot on like right up. And I was just stepping over. In fact, I kept thinking, should I slow down and pick those up for Dave? I'm like, no, he can handle it. He's a big boy. He'll just move right over it. Not a problem.
Yes. Well, I'm still a big boy, but I went down hard, and took a couple minutes to just energize, like, where am I at? What's broken? What's bleeding? What am I going to need to do? And was able to stand up, and things were painful, but everything moved. I didn't see any bones sticking out. Didn't notice the blood on my arm, because that isn't really the thing that hurt. What hurt was my ribs took most of the impact. And so here we are a week later, I'm still holding my ribs, but managed to work my way down to Wendy. And then, it's a typical guy thing, right? When something happens, it's like, let's just keep moving. And so Wendy suggested that we slowed down and pointed out there was an awful lot of blood on my right arm. And she broke out the first aid. And there we are in the middle of the trail. And of course, there's always someone coming back up there, at any of these moments that you don't want to have like outside audience see what's going on. They always show up and ask, can I help you? Are you okay?
So,
what did you do? Did you fall down? I'm like, of course I fell down.
So when I saw Dave, I knew something was up. He just wasn't walking right. And he's like, I fell down hard. we started going down the next section, would have taken us basically down to the parking lot until we get on the river trail. And I saw there was like quite a bit of blood on Dave's arm. And I was like, okay, hey, we need to do a buddy check. Let's just stop and just do a buddy check. Like, where are we? Where's our headspace? Did you hit your head? Those sorts of things. And being trained in as a wilderness first responder for my adventure guiding days, I'm pretty on top of my first aid. So I wanted to make sure we just stopped and kind of like wears things out. So we did. We stopped. We took out the first aid pack. I laid my hydration pack on the ground, took out first aid. You took your shirt off. You had a long sleeve shirt over another shirt. So we took it off, and you just had some scrapes and bruises on your arm, shoulder, and your back a bit. But I believe you fractured your ribs because it was hard to breathe, hard to cough, laugh, sneeze for the next 5-6 days.
Still, it's still going on. So.
David's still healing. So that being said, we decided to continue on, and I was like, well, I think I'll just pick up Dave, and he'll be fine. But actually, he wanted to run back. So yeah, he ended up
the typical guy thing.
He ended up running back the whole way. So
it's only a limb. I don't need it.
I don't want to make this podcast about our current training totally, but we did want to sneak that in there. So we did do a long run on Saturday. We did a long run, like a 4-hour run, and David was adamant about coming with me to do it out in the hills. This wasn't on the training course, but again, we were up in the same kind of area, and it was pretty steep. There was a lot of people, and but we had a great day. We had a great run. No whammies, no trippies, no follies. None of that. It was great. It was long, and we got out before it got 100 degrees. But then there was a lot of recovery after that, and Dave and I are just learning to recover. So we did like 15 miles on Saturday, and then the next day, Dave wasn't feeling that great, and I went out and did a 26-mile bike ride. And I didn't sleep that well, but I was like, I'm going to go do a bike ride to flush out my legs. So training for this is so much different than all of the bike racing that I used to do. But it's not just about the endurance training that we're doing. It's also about the strength training, which we're going to dive into because that ties into preparing ourselves to do a run in the Grand Canyon rim to rim. So anyway, let's dive in. That's where we're at with our training. We're moving through the space. So thank you for listening to that.
So staying with the fundamentals, I'm still doing the same thing for this ultra that I did for the Grand Canyon. And that is just time on feet. So new runner, I decided that I was going to run a marathon at some point in my life, maybe in my 20s. And I've successfully avoided doing it until now. So it has become apparent that this year is the year that I'm going to focus on running. And it's, required us to pull back on some of the other things. We're not in the pool swimming as much. We're not on our bikes as much as we were on normal seasons. It's just, 4 runs a week takes quite a bit out of you. And, yeah, speaking of fundamentals, let's just break into the Grand Canyon because I was not unprepared for that trip, but I realized when I got to the bottom and started coming back out, I was probably a little underprepared. And I think that's typical for a couple of the races we've done so far. You just don't know what you don't know, right? And even though we prepared incredibly for that trip, there were some things that went wrong. There was a lot that went right. And at the end of the day, I think it's a journey. Obviously, we'll do multiple times here in the future. But I think if you're listening and you're thinking about doing this, there's going to be some key things that we can help you walk away with. They'd be like, yeah, I planned for this, as opposed to getting a whammy. Because it's one thing to, take a crash in the foothills behind your house when it's easy to get home. You don't have the luxury of doing that when you're down in the Grand Canyon. And that was one of the things that I didn't consider.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah, let's get into it. So, I actually have notes in front of me today for our listeners. I usually don't have notes, and Dave always has notes. And today, something that we actually started was after we do the adventures, I have a notebook that, as we're driving to our next destination and we're sitting in the car for whatever time amount, Dave and I just break down what we just went through. Everything from our weekly training plan, our mental training, our virtual training. What was it like, the experience, everything we learned, so that we can help you who may be wanting to do that adventure have a better experience doing it. So I actually have my notes here with me, Dave.
All right.
How about that?
Launch it up. Let's go.
So speaking of training, Dave and I had been training a lot. We really believe in strength training. Both of us really believe in having a strength training program built into your whatever adventure training you are doing. An absolute must do. And not just muscle bar weight lifting, a lot of mobility, stretching, fundamentals working on possible imbalances that you may have. So really kind of a very structured training to do what we do to help ourselves be stronger. Like we do a lot of knee strengthening, glute strengthening, core foundation, mobility, all of that comes into this. And there's been a lot of focus on legs, especially this year with running. So, getting in your runs and hikes, having, a 16-week plan is always ideal for doing whatever marathon that you're doing. But we would always, on our plan, would try to get in elevation. Elevation's huge, especially doing Grand Canyon. You're going 5,000 feet down, 5,000 feet back up. So you really want to work on elevation training whenever you can, at least a couple of times, if not 3 to 4 times a week on your training run.
And specifically, when we decided we were going to do the Grand Canyon, it was back before Christmas, right? Mm-hmm. And so we had 4.5 months to plan, approximately
16 weeks.
And one of the things that we did was we decided to run a half marathon, and that was sort of our training plan because it was a half marathon that had a lot of elevation. They call it the Run to Roby Creek, the Race to Roby Creek, the hardest half marathon in the Pacific Northwest, and it lived up to its name. But I think that was a really good choice in terms of elevation training because we trained that course every week for the 16 weeks or so leading up to it. And while it was painful, especially as a new runner, right? I know it's painful for everybody, but when you're just getting going, it really accelerated my ability to actually complete the task, even though it hurt the whole time. So
yeah, that's very true. And if you didn't catch our episode, I think it was like an episode or 2 back, but it's the Race to Roby training. If you want to check that one out, we talk about the training for that, the hardest race in the Pacific Northwest.
And I'll just say the thing about strength training, and that's always been sort of a core fundamental for me, where running is not. Even though, I just had that accident a week ago, I believe the fact that I'm carrying, a good amount of muscle and flexibility training, mobility training is a lot of what we do. I think it could have been a lot worse if I didn't have that. Even this morning, when I tried to bench press a little bit, I don't have much power there, but at least I still have the muscle and I feel it kind of coming back quickly. I heal quickly. I'm a quick healer. So
So for sure, absolutely. And with the strength training for the Grand Canyon, I would we focused a lot on legs in our tips. I don't know if you want to share this now, Dave, but I would definitely focus on more stair steps, Stairmasters, get on those stairs, because the way the Grand Canyon goes is they drive mule trains. If you haven't done this before. Okay, so let me just back up. By the way, I used to be an adventure guide at the Grand Canyon, but I never went all the way down with my guests. Our guests were only, because we had to protect the guests themselves and where they ever came, throughout that, like they're just doing a short experience with it. So we would go down, not even halfway, maybe a couple of hours and then, a couple of hours out. And what they say is every hour in is 2 hours out. So every hour you're going down is 2 hours to get back up. So just make the calculation in your head. If it's going to take you, 3 hours to go down to the bottom, it's probably going to take you 6 hours to get out. Just double that. But so I had been to the Grand Canyon. I was familiar with the lodges, familiar with the village, familiar with the trails, but I had not done a run rim to rim with David, which was mile-wise, was it 18, 19 miles?
It's a ridiculously short amount of mileage when you consider the work. And that was one of my miscalculations. I'm like, well, it's only less than 20 miles, right?
We could do this.
It's not going to be a problem. And I just want to say, I want to touch on the stair step thing. because my preconceived notion was the Grand Canyon was going to be a trail run, and it's anything but a trail run. They create these steps made out of timbers and rebar and then backfilled with dirt and rock
For the mule train.
for the mule train.
Right.
And so some of the steps are as large as my knee, right? Like from my ankle to my knee, you're stepping down 2 feet easily all the time. And that means, you're going to step down thousands of these things, which I was not prepared for in terms of what the impact
It goes
was
on
gonna
for
be
hours.
on my ankles and knees, right?
Yeah.
And so tip number 1, get on a stair stepper and do 5 sets of 20,000, and you should be fine.
I would also say with that, train with a weighted vest. Train with a weighted vest, because you have to plan for your water consumption as much as possible for yourself. And when we went down, there was it was still earlier in the season, and one of the stations on the Bright Angel side was closed. Oh, by the way, let's just share what our route was. So we did South Kaibab Trail from South Rim to the bottom of the Colorado River, of the Grand Canyon, across the river, over and back up to the Bright Angel side on South Rim. So we did South Rim to South Rim in a day. Okay, so just so you know, we didn't go south to north. North was actually still closed. So it was just South Rim to South Rim in a day. But a weighted vest. And the reason I say the weighted vest is because you carry a lot with you. It's not even just your water. You're carrying extra gear, emergency blanket, first aid kit. And I want to talk about that, Dave. I want to talk about what to bring in your pack a little bit, because if we can go there, I don't know where your notes are, but if we could go there, I think it's really important to know what to bring in your pack. And that's why I say train with a weighted vest, because there is a lot that you're going to be carrying that you probably didn't think of. Like normally when you're doing your runs and your training runs, you're maybe filling your hydration pack or your flasks, and your hydration pack is maybe a liter and a half. But when you're going to the Grand Canyon, you want to make sure that thing is topped off.
Topped off with 2 liters, and then
At the minimum 2 liters.
and then 2 pints or quarts, whatever it
In those
is, for the
flasks.
electrolytes.
Yeah.
Plus all the camera gear, plus all the safety gear.
Yeah.
Like my backpack looked like a guppy. And when I put it on that morning as we were headed to the shuttle van, I was like, wow, this is a lot heavier than I had trained with.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's just back up, because this is important. Before we actually get to the day and everything, I want to talk about, first of all, we've gone through the training, and if you guys are considering doing the Grand Canyon strength training, for sure, focus on legs, do the Stairmasters, just have a solid foundational training plan. That is most important. Get these things in, as well as virtual training. We did with iFit 2 really great, incredible athletes, Tommy Rivs and John Peel, on iFit. They both did the Grand Canyon, the same South Rim to Rim that we did.
The exact same route.
2 different ways. Tommy ran it and John walked it. And based on their timing, we were kind of thinking that's probably the timing that we were going to have, because it looked like they were able to do it in somewhere between 6 and 7 hours.
Through the magical miracle of video. And
Right. Which they didn't show them eating lunch and taking breaks and having bathroom breaks and all of that. But so there's your physical training. And then the virtual training was great because we really actually wanted to see what we're getting into, even though, one of the things is when you're doing a virtual training, you can kind of iconic mark in your head, oh, I remember that tree, because we had said that, remember? Like, oh, there's Ooh-Ah Point. There's Ooh-Ah Point that Tommy talked about. Or there was that tree. There's Skeleton Point,
or Cedar Point, or
Cedar Point.
all the bridge crossings.
We knew it from the virtual training. Yeah, and familiarize yourself with how it's going to look. Really, that's really important, because there's only so much you can watch on YouTube of other people doing it too. But also that does help. So anything you can do, it doesn't have to be at iFit, but yeah, you could probably do a YouTube video watching other people do it. It's good to know kind of what they're doing. Also, when we were there, I don't know why I've just thought of this, but they're actually building another, looks like a real restroom / probably water station down there when we were there. So hopefully that'll be coming up soon.
I hope they sell ice cream at that thing.
So strength training, virtual training is really good. And then mental training. I think you have to realize that you don't want to die down there. You want to have fun. You want to add in positive mental training. So when you get to a place that's exhausting and you just feel like giving up, that you are really going for the inside because you are going to suffer some. If it's maybe your first time, mentally you're going to suffer. And it's sometimes hard to pull yourself out of that. I mean, Dave, you went through that. You went through that when you were down there.
Very much so. I mean, first of all, I hadn't planned for the giant stair stepper machine. So
On the way up for 5 hours.
we ran down, and that impacted my knee. So I had a little knee pain by the time we finally got down to the bottom. You had a blister.
I'm not even getting into the day yet. I'm just saying mental training is so important. Mental training is so important. I just, whatever you can do mentally to prepare for this. I listen to audio or podcasts, things that help me get through meditation and just being able to push yourself through hard, challenging spaces in life.
And that's where I was headed with that. So
Yeah.
the mental training, I was able to pull on it's the exact same experience I had with the race to Roby Creek, right? I ended up with
Yeah.
a little bit of a painful knee and overexerting myself, pushing myself too hard. And I was able to remember and pull on that from, okay, you got to stop, slow down, fuel, water, regroup, and just know that you're going to be able to push through it. It's going to be hard, but you can push through it.
I believe you can do it if you're listening to this and you're thinking about doing the Grand Canyon. You absolutely can. There is just some training. And I don't want what we're saying to scare you. It's just, it would help to set yourself up for success. And we are going to share our whole day in the next episode, stepping into the canyon, what happened to us with running out of water, and then a spiritual story that was kind of interesting that you can take it or leave it for what it is. But okay, so we've gone through the training, but I do want to talk about the packing and the prepping and traveling and getting there and kind of what we did the day before to help yourself, because this is important. So packing, because this trip was a kind of 2-for-1, we were doing our own personal Grand Slam. We wanted to do our own first trail half marathon, which we did, and then we're going to do Grand Canyon rim to rim, and then immediately after that, drive to Moab and do a cycling adventure, like 100 miles. So this was just our second adventure event. But preparing for it meant going through everything that I had learned and watched and studied and meticulously wrote down of what to bring in our packs that day for the event, but not just even for the event, leading up to it. So I just want to take like 3 minutes and try to get this out to you all, because this is so important. First of all, Dave and I are driving from Idaho to Arizona to go to the Grand Canyon. So we're, I don't know what the drive, we actually split the drive and we drove from here to Moab and stayed a night.
It's about 12 hours from here to Moab, somewhere in there with breaks and everything.
Yeah.
And then another 6 hours from Moab down
to the village.
To the village.
And so for us, for packing and prepping, we had to think of 3 kind of events. We were like, okay, there was the Grand Canyon run, then there was like hiking in Moab, and then also cycling. And we were not just bringing our road bikes, we're also bringing our mountain bike. So we had a lot of boxes of gear in the car. I mean, it was a lot.
We're those people where you can't even see out the windows.
And didn't even dawn on us to get one of those top rack things. I didn't even think about getting one of those, what do they call it? Yakima or Thule racks that you get like.
Right.
It hadn't even dawned on me.
I think one of those is in our future.
I was like, pack the car, as high as we can get into everything. So,
or a Sprinter van. So.
Right. So we had the gear, but then we really had to think about what's our food choices on the way down and setting ourselves up for success in the Grand Canyon, because we knew Grand Canyon Village is pretty limited and you don't want to take a lot of your time to wine and dine yourself the day before, because anything can happen. You might have a reaction to the food, you might not feel well, and you definitely don't want to drink the night before a huge event like that. You obviously, everything that you're doing a couple of days leading up to the event, as far as your food and fuel, is going to matter on the day of your event. So Dave and I were super conscious about like, how do I pack for kind of 4 days kind of in the car, like first day to get there, to Moab. I got to pack for that. And then Moab to the Grand Canyon. And then the day before. So I guess it was 3 days. But when I'm thinking about traveling food in the car, eating at the hotels, but food like, for me, it's a little bit trickier because I have a very sensitive stomach and I have gluten-free thing going on. So I just have to be really careful. And I kind of stick to my favorites for easy food to that my stomach can handle. Things like sweet potatoes, rice, boiled eggs, chicken, yogurt, those sorts of things. Anything that's real easy, broth, that's real easy. So, but then at the same time, you want to think about what you want to have when you get done with the Grand Canyon, because most likely you're going to be exhausted and you're probably not going to have the best stomach. So you want to bring some plain foods, because it's not like, hey, Dave, we're done. Let's go make a reservation at the Bright Angel Lodge, or El Tovar, and go to a steak dinner and celebrate. I mean, you're kind of barely moving at this point.
Well, I sort of thought that that's what we were going to be doing. So I brought that bottle of wine. And hey, before we went down, I was thinking, wouldn't it be cool if we did it 2 days back to back? Because we had an extra day in the canyon. Guess what? Unrealistic thinking, right? It just
oh my gosh,
would not have happened. So I know we're going to talk about the shit show after we managed to come back up out of the canyon. But let's keep on the planning side of it.
Okay, the planning side. So, if you are traveling, one of the best things to do that we have learned is get a electric cooler. We just plugged it into our car, and we kept a lot of food cold, not only in our car traveling that day, but also at the hotel. You can get one of the adapters that plugs into the wall and just have a plug-in cooler. To me, that just was everything, because we were able to bring things like, to be able to make things like overnight oats. That was like our go-to things. So we could, bring boiled eggs and chicken and travel with all of that in a cooler. Because, I mean, what I'm saying sounds great, but like, how do you travel with it? So having a cooler like that is fantastic. Also, I mentioned sweet potatoes. We pre-cooked all of our potatoes, like cooked and cooled potatoes, and I sliced them in kind of wedges so that they were ready for me to eat cold or heated up once we got to a hotel. When I want to microwave them or whatever, at least they were like ready for us. So I could make any meals creatively out of it: chicken sandwiches, salads, whatever. It was all prepared. So that's on the food side. We've talked to you guys about the gear. But then one other thing, going back to the food thing, is when you get done out of the canyon for food, just make sure you have something simple for your stomach that is like plain potatoes, plain pasta,
just a peanut
broth,
butter and jelly sandwich,
peanut butter jelly, peanut butter,
you're
honey.
Probably going to want some extra glucose. So
yeah, something because
drink a Coke.
I can tell you when you get done, it's just your stomach. I mean, you've just So obviously, and if you're an ultra runner, you already know all of these things, but it's a big deal to go down in and come back out and then make sure you're getting the right fuel. So we were really focused on what does our hydration look like? What is the nutrition on, in the canyon, and that was the biggest thing. So now I want to switch gears, Dave, and talk about like what was in our packs so that we can talk about the day before, because that's so important. Because the day that we actually went down, the night before, the day before, we laid out everything of what in our packs, what it was going to look like, and like how much are we bringing. For sure, we both had electrolytes.
For sure, we had electrolytes. I'm just going to go back.
Yeah,
and just say one of the genius moves. It was we got there, and then the next day we had the whole day to scope the area out, prep, plan. We did a nice bike ride.
That was a great way to alchemize, yeah.
And just not have to descend directly into the canyon, which I thought we were going to do, so that we could do 2 back to back. But it just allows you to acclimate and see the lay of the land and actually lay your backpack and your gear out and how the thing's going to go down.
So one of the coolest things we did is we stayed in Moab I think it was the Fairfield Marriott. They have the best bike locker, by the way, at the Fairfield Marriott in Moab. And they allowed us to keep a couple of bikes there. And then we took our mountain bikes with us to the Grand Canyon. And from the lodge we stayed at, we mountain biked. There's a trail that you can go on. It's a paved pathway, and you literally can bike the whole village from one end to the other, all the way to the South Kaibab trailhead. And we wanted to do that to kind of get a feel of the view of the canyon, what the entry was going to be like, to familiarize ourselves. Are there restrooms there? You know, what's our timing like? How's the day? We were paying attention to the sun, the heat, all of those elements, so that we, you know, even when, remember when we woke, I think it was like the night we got there, and the next day that we had that full day, we recognized the light the first thing in the morning. We're like, oh, okay, it's 5 o'clock. That's how light it is.
It's like 5 o'clock, and we could actually be in the canyon. And so we decided that's the way it was going to go.
Yeah. But so riding the bikes was awesome because you got the full layout. It's super beautiful up there on the rim, going through the village, all these beautiful trees alongside this paved pathway. You're kind of weaving in and out of the lodges and then over to the rim. And you get this beautiful rim view all the way across. You can see through the canyon. I would do it first thing in the morning because it does get hot. So we did it like first thing in the morning. We were out there and we rode our bikes all the way from one end to where like the train station is, all the way to South Kaibab Trail. And it was great. I don't know how many miles that was, but it was a very easy ride. They do rent bikes there also at the visitor center. You can get electric bikes too. So that was a plus if you are one of those people that loves those.
If you want to wait around for the bike.
If you want to wait around until they open, but, or, you know, get it the day before or bring your own like we did. But that was great because it was so beautiful. Did we see was it elk?
Yeah,
I want to saw.
There was elk right at
South Kaibab.
Yeah,
just standing there eating. It's great.
There's elk all over the place.
Yeah,
we saw them, a few of them. We stayed at the Maswick Lodge, and I think that is, after looking at everything, the other genius move. They have a new extension sort of in the back. The newer buildings allow you to back sort of right up. They have deck where you can put your mountain bike and chain it up so it doesn't have to hang out in your room. The rooms had stove and
kitchenette,
yeah. Refrigerator, super important. And then it was easy to shuttle in and out 400,000 pounds of gear.
Oh my God, we had so much
gear.
We
travel so heavy, right? We're so prepared. But Maswick Lodge, if you're going, that is definitely where I recommend you stay.
Yeah, Maswick Lodge, Maswyk, Maswick Lodge. They have a lot of older buildings, so really shop it online to make sure that you get one with a kitchenette, because having all the food that you prepared to bring with you and having to just rely on your electric cooler is not going to work. You really want to make sure you have a fridge. It just makes it more comfortable for you. However, they did tell us they only have one room with a microwave, so if you're going to rely on a microwave, make sure you get that room. Also, though, at Maswick Lodge, they have a communal eating area where they had different vendors from everything from pizza.
Yeah, I mean, they had barbecue. They had a taco bar.
Yeah, taco bar.
They had, I did burgers, a burger
one night, yeah.
Which for me is safe food. Some other stuff in there. I mean, it's the necessities. I wouldn't want to rely on it.
But for one meal.
But it's nice to have it there. Yeah.
Yeah, it was nice. It was like right after registration. Across from registration, there's a gift shop, but if you go straight back, there was like the communal eating area. So it was great. It was like super convenient to be that close. And we had heard about Maswick, but all the pictures online are not that great. So when you look at it, they don't even show you the new building. So we didn't even know we were going to be in a new building. Everything, it looks old, but we were referred to stay here because it was a great exit and the closest to get out. Once you get out of Bright Angel, you want to be able to get back to your lodge because you have to start planning logistics on, how am I getting dropped off? How am I getting back? And you've got millions of people around you. Maybe not millions, but there was a lot of tourists that are constantly kind of humming around when the peak season of the Grand Canyon.
There's a lot of people not going into the canyon.
Yes, there is.
Or as I found out, there's a lot of people that go down like 100 yards or 200 yards, and then they just stand there and smoke cigarettes, which is great.
Oh my gosh. Well, one of the cool things we did after the ride on the Rim Trail and back, parked our bikes, and then we went and kind of walked the Rim Trail. Checked out Bright Angel, a little closer of where we'd be getting out. We checked out the lodges and went into a couple of gift shops, which was great. We went into Bright Angel, and I think there was another one down the road. And we went to the visitor center. By the way, speaking of the visitor center, if you have a question for the ranger, and which I hope you maybe don't, because there's another place you can get your questions answered, over by the Maswick Lodge. I can't remember what it was called, Dave. There was another...
Is the backcountry office.
The backcountry office. That's the place to go, by the way. The visitor center, you can go there and ask questions. However, you will need to be the first person standing in line, because the line was about 50 people to 60 people deep when we were there. And it was like maybe 9:30 in the morning or something. It was like, whoa. So just be prepared. The visitor center is very busy, and really that is just built to ask questions. Hopefully you can get everything you need answered. But also another great place to call is just, if you have questions, is literally pick up the phone and dial your hotel office, because it's all under one hub. All of the lodges are connected. So when you pick up the Grand Canyon phone number, you're dialing into the whole hub there. So what we did is we wanted to get a ride first thing in the morning to get dropped off at the South Kaibab Trail. And we had heard that you could get like a taxi ride, or we had looked up like Uber and Lyft, but we did see that there was a taxi ride that we could get. So we made the phone call to the taxi service, and they just said, hey, call the front desk. So that was brilliant, because the front desk, these people are incredible. They connect you to anywhere in the whole village that you need to be connected to.
And I think it's one of those things that's really not advertised,
It's
because
not.
you see the shuttle, and the first shuttle is at 6 a.m., which drop you off at the trailhead at 6:45. And, then you're at the trailhead with a whole busload of people, and no bueno, right? And so
It's already too late. Yeah.
fortunately we had that day before, because my bright idea was, why don't we just run to the trailhead, which would have been a disaster because it's like 2 miles, right?
Right.
And so we would have been running at 3 a.m, but they told us they have this shuttle service that runs 24/7. We'll pick you up wherever, and we'll drop you off wherever on the south side anyway. I don't know about the north side.
Yeah.
And so there we were. They picked us up at 4:30.
Yeah.
And 15 minutes later, we're at the trailhead at 4:50.
4:50 or something.
4:45.
Yeah.
There was an elk there waiting for us, but also there was enough light that we could start moving immediately. And
Yeah.
it was so beautiful to be able to not be with a crowd of people headed down into the canyon to watch sunrise.
Yep,
So,
it totally was. So,
so that's another tip. Be prepared to catch up on some of your sleep maybe before you go there.
Because there's going to be very little sleep when you get there.
There's going to be very little sleep.
I mean, you're
when
going
you
to have anxiety somewhat. I mean, I did. I couldn't sleep the whole night before. And I knew we were getting up at like 3:15 in the morning to tape toes and prep everything and make sure we're out the door by 4:30. Make sure we ate a little something before we're out there. And it's really hard to like get up and eat when you're not that hungry first thing in the morning. But before we dive into that, because on the next episode we're going to share our entire experience with you, what it was like, what we ran into, our best tips for you going down in and everything. But I do want to talk about, because Dave had cut me off earlier, not intentionally, but I want to go back to what was in our packs. And we had packed in our packs 1 liter of water, and then we had
2 liters.
2 liters of water. Thank you. 2 liters of water in the hydration bladder. And then I had 1 flask. So when I say flask, by the way, I'm talking about the running vest that you wear. Anything like Camelback or Solomon makes like a marathon running vest. If you didn't know, they work great. You can find them at REI. And they're just fantastic. You can carry everything in them. So they have these little pockets for food. You can put your phone in there. It was just fantastic. So yeah, we had the 2 liters of hydration of bladder water, and then in each flask of water, which were these soft flasks that set on your chest, I had 1 filled with electrolyte. I had another filled with a carb electrolyte, which is a super big deal that I learned about nutrition this year, about having how powerful carb electrolyte is. And then I had an empty flask in my back that just had the powder in it for me to fill up with water. The other thing we had in there was we had an emergency water flask in case we ran out of water, that we could use either the Colorado River or a stream or creek or something that we ran into, that if we needed it, we could use it. And then first aid. I had a first aid kit. I did bring a jacket because they always recommend bringing a jacket because the weather can change so quickly. Even on the radar, when you look, it looks like a clear sunny day. It just, Grand Canyon is such an elevation. You just don't know.
You get storms in the mountains all
the time
that are not part of a system.
Right. That's like not even part
localized.
of your whatever app you're looking at for weather.
And carrying a jacket, right, seems stupid when you're starting out. It was 48 when we started out, but it was
44. I think it was
44.
Yeah.
But it ended up being 100. But not only did we carry the jacket, because you just never know, like, are you going to be spending extra time down in the canyon for one reason or another?
Yeah.
Also, a little emergency space blanket, right?
We did. We brought the emergency space blanket, and let's see, what else did we have? I had a blister kit. So I made my own blister kit. That was in there. I had an EpiPen. This is the last thing. Oh my gosh. Okay. Before I even share that, we had our food. And so our food was a peanut butter jelly sandwich we both brought. We brought some salty pretzels for salt and crunch, something that didn't crumble. We had brought our snack protein bars.
Gel packs.
I think that was it, Dave. I mean, our packs are pretty full.
I wanted to put a burrito in there, but there's no rum. So.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things we can share with you that we did right and the things we do wrong. So we're going to share that in the next episode. But one of the other things that was unplanned for me that I had to unexpectedly plan for was my cycle started. And on the day of the Grand Canyon, leading up, I thought that it would not come. And there was like on the day it started. And listen, when I actually get my cycle, it's like, it goes all in, everything comes all at once, all the PMF symptoms, all of that. Like I was cramps in my legs, my back. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's happening on the Grand Canyon day. David's looking at me going, I can't believe you're sharing the story. But like, this is, so how do you plan for that? Like I didn't look up anything on YouTube or do my research on, how do you pack for that? Because it's not like it's what it is in the Grand Canyon. It's pack it in, pack it out. So I'm not going to share all the details of that, but if you want to DM me, I'm happy to share more with you or just leave me a comment and I'll get back to you. But yeah, I did have to plan for the unexpected. And, us ladies have these cycles that we had to deal with, but it made the whole journey an extra challenge for me because now I had this extra thing I had to deal with. And it really was not easy. And it didn't make me feel very good. I've gone through runs out there myself for training on cycle day, and it's just been harder to get through, and even my last race, I was on my cycle. It was so uncomfortable. So, I had been through the uncomfortable. Mentally, I can get through it. It's the physical you have to push through. And the irritation with the Grand Canyon was you really don't have anywhere to deposit your trash. You pack it in, pack it out. So you're just carrying everything with you and hope that you're feeling okay. There was a lot of Advil I brought.
All right. So
Dave's like embarrassed.
I'm ready for that bottle of wine right now.
Anyway.
And, I'll try and wipe my memory clean of some of those incidents.
So we were talking about what we packed in our packs. I had to bring some of the unexpected in my pack. And also, Dave, you know what we brought that was really good? I think they're called stall mates out there. Stall mates. They're pre-packaged little hand wipes. They work great, by the way. So if we stuck some stall mate packages in our pack.
Sorry about that, Rash.
So yeah, that was awesome to have, be prepared with that. A lot of little baggies for little trash, all of that. So that is, I think we covered everything, Dave, that we wanted to talk about to get you guys ready to go in the Grand Canyon. I want our listeners to be prepared for going in, making sure you schedule the right timing on your days. The best times to go, I think, are on the shoulder seasons. Spring and fall are some of the best times to do the Grand Canyon. And you don't have to do it all in one day. You can totally just go down and do whatever you want. You go down halfway and come back up. We're sharing our story just rim to rim. It was a south rim to rim. We're sharing our whole day, and we just wanted to share it with you so you guys know kind of what it was like during this adventure. Yeah.
And part of the adventure is planning for the adventure, right? And we always enjoy that, the packing, planning, prepping, buying, doing whatever it takes.
Training in the heat, the
Yeah.
cold, the wind, the rain. We trained in all of that. Yeah.
Doing whatever it takes to make it happen. And I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah, because what we have to share with you in this next episode of Stepping into the Grand Canyon, wow, it was mind-blowing, almost surreal experience. So, yeah, I hope this episode's kind of lit your fire just to think about possibly putting this on your bucket list of diving into the Grand Canyon and doing this adventure with maybe your best friend, a family member, maybe you're doing a solo, whatever it is. Man, we wish you the best success, because being able to believe that you can do this, and we certainly did. It was on our bucket list. Go watch a virtual, entry into the Grand Canyon on YouTube, on iFit. Go check it out and see if it just lights you up, because we can't share with you what we learned in these next couple episodes. It's just going to be epic. But thank you so much today for listening, for joining on our journey, wherever you are at home, doing dishes, working out. Maybe you're actually on a run right now yourself. I don't know what you're doing, but we are so grateful that you are part of our community, listening to us, and leave us a comment if you feel like you want to, jive in with us. We are always reading those comments and listening to you guys. So we want to hear about your journey and what adventures that you are maybe coming up for you, or what you're shooting for.
Yeah, and if you're planning this and you have a specific question, we may be able to answer it
Absolutely.
for you. So just shoot it our direction, because as you can tell, after doing this, we're planning on doing it probably every year for the rest of my life. It was that incredible.
That's pretty awesome. So that being said, man, go out and keep going. We want to leave you with a message to stay strong, do everything you can to listen to the embers that are inside of you, because that's the most important. They are your guiding light to what your purpose is in life. We love you. We're so grateful you're part of this community of Embers Rising. And we just want to say, man, get out, be strong, and keep going.